am Christine Von Pander, and I'm currently hosting 2 clubs here in Clubhouse. I have People for That, where we talk about business tools to run your business better, and this club, Cookies from the Universe, which is here to help people navigate the current revolution of the planet and the people on it with ease and stay in flow. Today, my guest is Erin Thorp. Erin Thorp is an empathetic keynote speaker, writer, and coach for leaders who struggle with conflict, communication, and performance during high-stress times, as we are definitely in right now. She supports leaders in navigating difficult conversations, building powerful teams, and communicating with empathy so they can lead confidently. Having spent 20 years in the masculine-dominated engineering and construction industries, leading teams and delivering projects, Erin had taken notice that her colleagues were highly skilled and cared deeply about their work, but most were incapable of fully holding their own emotion and therefore unable to hold the emotions of others. Yeah, after being told time and time again she was too emotional to pull herself together, she realized there was a big gap in what was being taught to technical leaders. She knew that skills often categorized as soft, connection, empathy, vulnerability, are actually the most difficult to learn, but are key to creating leaders who make an impact at home, at work, and in the world. At the beginning of the pandemic, Erin did even more self-reflecting and observed the way leaders were treating their employees. Whether they were large corporations or entrepreneurs, she noticed the same patterns and ultimately decided to take the matter into her own hands. Erin is now a non-practicing engineer running her own leadership business full-time. In 2017, she authored a book, Inside Out Empathy, inspired by her career and journey as a mother, and explores using the superpower of empathy to build effective teams. She currently resides in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, with her husband and their 3 children. In her spare time, she enjoys curling up with a book and cooking with her family. Good evening, Erin. Thank you for joining us here.
Thank you for having me, Christine. I'm excited about this conversation.
As am I. So where do you want to start? How did you've let us know a little bit about how you arrived at doing this, taking a left turn in your career. But what did that actually look like for you?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't a left turn. I think it was a whole bunch of little twists and turns and bends in the road all the way along that eventually, if you look back, eventually got me to going in a different direction. But at the time, it often didn't feel like it. It probably started, for me, if I go back, it probably started around kind of the 15-year mark in my career where it was sort of becoming apparent to me that there was just something else pulling at me in a different direction, and it was this kind of leadership piece. I couldn't see the path forward though at the time as to how I would either even make it a career, let alone, move out of what I was doing. But slowly, kind of over the years, following the threads and the things that get put in front of you, I was able to kind of, very, I don't want to say unintentionally, but really I didn't ever see that like, oh, this is when I'm going to make this transition. It was sort of like a whole bunch of things had to line up and they did. And here we are today. So yeah, it really is cookies from the universe.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's, having that conversation with people like yourself and learning about how you see cookies from the universe impacting your life and making these big changes. I mean, being in the engineering career is not a small thing. That is, it's like trying to redirect an ocean liner.
When it feels like inertia, that most days.
Yeah, when it's got the inertia going, and it's like, how am I going to do this? And it was so awesome for you to say, it wasn't one big taking the wheel and turning it. It was a whole bunch of little little moves and little maneuvers that helped you make this huge change in career.
Yeah, like I said, there was sort of this pulling around the 15-year mark, and this kind of bigger conversation happening in industry around, how do we keep mid-career women in their careers? I had a lot of thoughts about it because I was a mid-career woman, and so started to kind of sit at some of those tables and have some of those conversations. I'd say probably the most unexpected, uh, we'll call them cookies because that's the theme of the room here tonight. But, one of the most unexpected twists in my story is our daughter around that same time, she was in grade 6. She was diagnosed with some learning disabilities, which we had no idea were coming. It took us very off guard. And we've since been learning how to deal with her kind of neurodivergency and neurodiversity. And looking back, it's probably one of the biggest gifts because it really helped me to actually take the first step out of my career. I did go back, but I took 6 or 8 months off to be with her and to figure out kind of what she needed and support the family. Um, and it was sort of like, oh, there's something else out here besides what I've been doing for the last 15 years. Isn't this interesting? And I mean, I did go back because there was lots of things going on in the family that I needed to do that, but it was definitely part of what planted the seed that there could be something else to move into. Um, and it was just kind of that was sort of the big catalyzing event, if you will. From there, I did a coaching certification just to add to my own leadership toolbox. I never intended to actually become a coach, quote unquote. It was more so that I could just be a more effective leader with the team that I was leading at the time. But found out that I really loved it and I was pretty good at it. And more and more people were like, hey, can I hire you? And so then I had one foot in corporate and I had one foot out in this entrepreneurial, like my own business and having clients and, 3 little kids at home. And it was just, it really, by the beginning of the pandemic, it felt like I had 2 feet on either side of a divide that was just getting wider and wider. Um, and it was time to just make a decision, right? Which one was I going to try? I'd already spent 20 years in the corporate land. I'm like, I know what that looks like. Let's try over here and see what this looks like.
Wow. That's really great. We never know what's going to turn into being a cookie, right?
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of people bemoan experiences.
Mhm.
We'll call them experiences in their life, and other people see anything like that comes up as, okay, what am I to learn from this, and how can I make things better? Hey, Angie, thanks for joining us. So how can I use that experience to make things better and to do better and be better in everything that I do? And you
Mhm.
certainly did take advantage of that opportunity. And I'm just curious now that once you made that decision to firmly plant both feet on the coaching side of your life, and come out of the engineering side. Um, you did say you went and got professional certification as well. I just want to make a note of that because a lot of people calling themselves coaches nowadays don't have any kind of certification. And there
Yeah.
really is no governing body around the coaching industry here in Canada, at least at the moment anyway. There's a lot of places you can go and get certified, but a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know that. So, when you are looking for a coach, I would highly recommend, investigating and asking around to people and asking for recommendations of people you should speak with, and making sure that they've got some credentials to back up what they're doing. Because, when you're talking about, hey, Holly, welcome. When you're talking about people's lives, you're talking about their work life, and it always blends into their personal life as well. I don't
Yeah.
care who you are. You cannot separate them because you are a human being in this life. And if someone's not professionally trained and you end up getting into something of a crisis, somebody who's had that training can support you and give you help and get you through, with help of others, but they know where their capabilities are and where they're not, and they know when to call in other professionals for whatever it is that someone needs. So people have been very vulnerable the last 2 years, and I see that as being something really good, because a lot of people that were being very stoic, and stoic was, another big word of the, patriarchal society that was floating around, and people were being stoic and not showing their feelings, and, damping down whatever stresses and traumas and things they were going through. And now that's just not the way to be anymore. And there is help out there for people. And Erin is one of those people that can help. So, help you with your business life, your work life, as well as, who you are when you walk away from there in the day and you go home to your family. So it's really important. And I just want to recognize, Erin, that you have taken the time to get that accreditation, to make sure that when you're helping people, you're not helping them and then leaving them out to dry, kind of thing. You've got them. When you're a client, and
Yeah.
you're looked after.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is true. And lots of different methodologies, right? I think that's the other thing that's important when you're looking to start a coaching relationship, is just what is the framework or the methodology that they work with, because there's a lot of them out there, and different situations call for different tools.
Yes, for sure. And then,
Mhm.
how did you decide? And you said you uh, kind of hinted a little bit at it, but why did you become specifically a leadership coach?
Mm.
Of all of the other types of coaching that you could have done, you chose to be a leadership coach. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think if I look at my own story, which I talk about a lot in my book, it's I have always held a leadership role. I'm the oldest kid. Just there's just always been this space in my life where I have been in some kind of leadership role, and it was around that kind of mid-career point where, you know, there's this conversation happening around how do we keep people in their career, and I'm looking at like leaving and starting something new, um and it was like, what was that new thing going to be, and where do I think I can have the most impact? And I really was drawn back to, I had some really great leadership experiences in my career, and I had some really awful ones, and it was a big part of keeping women in male dominated technical industries, I think, is around their experience with leaders, right? The ones that I felt connected with me, could understand what I was going through, could help me see options that I didn't see, that were that were practicing empathy, that could kind of see what I was going through. I wanted to work for. I wanted to stay. I wanted to work for them. I wanted to be a part of that. And the ones that didn't, I couldn't check out fast enough. So for me, that was just drawing on my own experience and going like, how can I want to have an impact with these leaders that might impact every other person's life that they interact with, and how can I, help support them in building their own skills, to make that as positive as it can be for every team member that they have.
That's wonderful. I wish that I had you either in when I was in my corporate life. I wish I had either had you teaching the leaders in the companies that I worked for, or being my boss. Very, very selfishly,
Yeah.
wishing that I had someone like you when I was in the corporate world, because it just, I suffered burnout at least three times
Mhm.
in my career.
Yeah.
And the burnout was not due to me not being skilled at my job.
Mm-mm.
I was absolutely skilled at my job, and I got rewarded for it very well. But the things that I had to endure at the hands of the leadership
Yeah.
were just, were just terrible and totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
And so, having someone like you now is wonderful and great and magnificent for all of the people now that are going through their work lives. And I'm just so grateful that people like you are the ones that are coming forward now. And that's why I so wanted to have you as a guest on the Cookies from the Universe show, because what I'm trying to do here is bring people options and let them know there are paths forward that are not grating against your values and
Yeah.
your morals and things like that. So again, so grateful to have you.
Thank
um,
you.
so I'm going to step back just a little bit and ask, how are you able to help so many people understand and embrace the fact that this is something that really needs to change on a very large scale out there? How do you get them to, how do you win them over? How do you make them
Well,
see that there's a better way?
yeah. Um, it's so interesting. I mean, it is your comment earlier about turning an ocean liner. It feels like that most days. And some days I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job of hitting the masses and helping people kind of see what's out there. And other days, you've got some small wins or some breakthroughs that make you kind of fill up the tank and indicate to you that you are going in the right direction. I think the biggest thing, and I guess the access point that I have found is around communication, especially during conflict. And you talked a little bit about it in the introduction there. But the practice of empathy and our ability to access empathy is most beneficial to us when we get into difficult conversations or conflict, which is a standard part of doing business, let's be honest. In fact, high performing teams see conflict as a way to actually do better, right? They actually embrace it. They go, they get excited when people have a difference of opinion because they know that it's going to lead to a breakthrough. Where we have lower functioning teams, or teams that are just coming together, or maybe slightly dysfunctional teams, what we end up seeing is a lot of false harmony, right? People saying yes when they mean no, having meetings after the meeting. We're not actually talking about the real issues that need to be discussed. And so um, the access point into those teams is that dysfunction that's happening, to get in there and to help them see that there is a way that we can embrace conflict. We can see this difference of opinion as a way to get stronger, to grow, better ideas, to innovate, to be more creative. Um, but that's usually the pain point, if you will, of most teams and or leaders that I work with. And so that's how we start. And then it slowly kind of builds from there.
All right. So there is a clear path forward. It's just a matter of positioning, I guess
Yeah,
would
and we need
be.
need
Yeah.
some new tools, right? Like empathy
Yeah.
is a skill. A lot of people think that you are born with it or without it, like it's some kind of innate trait, like you have blue eyes or brown eyes. You have empathy or you don't. And unless you have, a psychological condition that would preempt you from being able to practice empathy, it is a skill that most human beings can learn. And
Absolutely.
it's just like going to the gym. I often say, it's like we all have bicep muscles. Some of us can do 50 push-ups and some of us can do 5, right? It's just a matter of how strong those muscles are, and the empathy is no different.
Hmm. Yes. At this point, I'm just going to let you take a breath, Erin, and get a drink of water. And I'm going to do a quick room reset for anyone
Perfect.
just joining us now. So, for those of you just joining us, welcome to Cookies from the Universe Club, which is here to help people navigate the current revolution that we're going through, that humans and the planet are going through, and with ease, and stay in flow. So please click on Erin's lovely image to check out her bio and follow her on this app. And please also check out the other people in the room and read their bios and follow them as well. There's some really wonderful people here. So, if what Erin is saying is resonating for you, please click on the pinned link at the top of the screen to connect directly with Erin, and let her know some of the challenges you're having, and let you know how she can help with that, whether it be in your workplace, or if you're a leader and you know that it's time for a change but you're not sure where to start. Please do yourself a favor, click on that pinned link at the top and get a hold of Erin. You will be glad that you did. So with that, I'll bring you back, Erin. I'm gonna kind of switch to a little bit of commercial part here. When is the best time for someone thinking of, calling in somebody like you to their company? Say if they're on the leadership team and they know that there's problems, and they know that they've kind of been tiptoeing around somebody in the office, or somebody else in leadership, or things like that. When's the best time for someone thinking about, I'm glad I'm hearing this now, I want to do something about it? When's the best time for somebody to get in touch with you?
That's a very good question, Christine. I think it's probably the best time is the time when you don't think you have time to deal with it. And I say that for a reason, because, I'll go back to this gym analogy. When you have a lot going on, and when you're in the heaviness of the situation, it's the best time to start lifting the weight, right? And to start doing the practices, and to start digging into why this situation might be occurring. I'm a firm believer that we follow ourselves around, and we can be, wherever you go, there you are. So a lot of times leaders and teams will think it's someone else's fault. Like we have a dysfunctional team member, or we have this really difficult person, and if we just get rid of them, then it'll be okay. But the problem is if you created, sometimes you get put into these teams, and yes, there were some pre-existing problems there before. But generally speaking, if you're seeing kind of this recurring theme in your teams or in the people that you're leading, it's actually not outside of you, it's inside of you. There is some skill or opportunity for you to do some growth, and to build some muscle to be able to handle these types of situations. So the best time is if you're dealing with something. That's the best time to start to do the work, because we can actually put the practices into action right away.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I see Angie has come up on stage. Hello,
Ooh,
Angie.
yay.
Did you have anything at this point that you wanted to ask, or you wanted to share in the conversation, Angie? If so, go ahead.
I know I'm loving the conversation between the two of you. It's always good to learn more about Erin and what she's up to, because our paths intersect often in different places. So yeah, just let me know what you'd like me to weigh in on. I'm just happy to be here on stage with two lovely women, and maybe Holly will join us too.
Yeah, I just saw Holly's comment in the chat there about the dental field needing leadership training. I think all fields need leadership training. This is the thing that we all go to our careers and learn a technical skill, but those of us in kind of our generation, I see some of the younger generations now starting to weave in leadership training, which it just excites me beyond measure. But there's still a large force of us in our Gen X and millennial generations that are in significant leadership positions that have very little training or teaching or, kind of formal knowledge or education about leadership.
Absolutely agree. And to Holly's point, yeah, there's still bullies in the, there's bullies going through school, but there's also bullies in the workplace. and it does still happen every day. And as enlightened as the TV shows that talk about business, that are in business environments, like to make us believe that everyone is enlightened and aware of all of their aware of their teammates and aware of the people that report to them, aware of what's going on, and watch for those cues and listen for those cues in meetings, or notice when someone needs a little bit of extra support, someone wanting to speak out in a meeting for the very first time, for example, and they've really got something to say, and they've talked to you about it one-to-one, and the meeting is happening, and they're not sure of themselves enough to know when to break in or when to say something. And being able to be that leader that doesn't have their ego involved, to say, hey, Holly wanted to, sorry, sorry, Holly. I'll see what I can do about that. Holly's trying to come up. There we go. And, to say, hey, Holly, you and I were talking about that yesterday. Please share your thoughts with everyone, right? And letting them know this is how you do it. This is when you do it. And it gives a really good example of how to help take someone by the hand and bring them up. Because there's no downside to everyone winning. It's not the contest is not against each other. The contest is everybody winning together. And I just think that's part of what a lot of people don't do, and they're not supportive of their people that report to them and things like that. So
yeah, it's part of this massive shift, like we were talking about earlier, in the, I think you called it the revolution, right? There's this whole shift, and I know, Angie, you're pretty versed in this move from command and control, where we have somebody tells me what to do and I go and do it, and I don't really have to think about anything, to now this environment where we need to trust and collaborate and inspire and influence and lead in an entirely different way. And it's an entirely different skill set.
Yes, it absolutely is. And it doesn't mean that you're being less than when you're helping to support and bring your people up. It actually shows much more strength of leadership when you don't have your ego in the way of anyone else's success.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do another quick room reset. And then I think the next thing that I'd like to talk with you about is what are some of the things that, okay, how about this? How about you tell us a couple of stories about turnarounds that you've been able to successfully do, and we don't need to know names or anything due to privacy issues, but if you could share with us some of your success stories, I think that would be really helpful for people to say, hey, that's the environment that I'm in right now.
Sure.
Just so that they get an idea, right?
Yeah,
So
no problem.
I'll just do the quick room reset again. So welcome to Cookies from the Universe for people that are just joining us live, and for the people listening on the replay. So the Cookies from the Universe Club is here to help people navigate the current revolution that the planet and the people on it are going through, and stay in it with ease and stay in flow. So please click on Erin's lovely image to check out her bio and follow her in this app. And if what she's saying resonates for you, please click the pinned link at the top of the screen to connect with Erin. You'll be so happy that you did. So, and with that, Erin, I'll bring you back. And
Sure.
Can you tell us about some of your success stories with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two that kind of come to mind. So one, the first one I'll start with is a entrepreneur growing a business. When we started working together, she had a number of contractors, but was at that point where she knew that she needed to bring on some staff. And what I'm finding really interesting about working with the entrepreneurial world is a lot of them don't set out to be leaders. They have a great idea. They want to bring a product or a service or a business to market. And they kind of it's almost like they end up by accident leading a team. If they're successful, successful solopreneurs end up being leaders because they need a team to deliver, their impact in the world. And so when we started, it was a very small team. And over the course of 2.5 years, she has now, I think we were just talking last week, there's like 7 or 10 permanent team members. We're doing, quarterly, we do different things every quarter, but we do team alignment, I would call them, kind of workshops every quarter. I'm not just coaching her anymore. I'm coaching her and her two directors of one's operations and one's marketing. And so it's just been this real evolution, because she recognized really early on that, like, I don't know how to lead people. I don't know how to do the things that I need to do. I'm really good at seeing the business and the vision and the strategy, but I'm not good at this part. And she knew she wanted to do it different than possibly, the corporations and the companies that these people were joining her team out of. So that's been that's been really fun to walk alongside her in that journey and just support her as her business has grown.
That's super to have that vision of how she wants the whole company to be. And it's not all about her. And yes, she has the vision. It's her vision that got this together and is making this a commercially viable endeavor. But it's not all about her. It's about her team and everyone succeeding together. So I love that story.
Yeah. And the second one I want to tell you about is actually, she's a corporate employee. She's a production manager in a manufacturing facility. And her manager came to me and said, I need help with one of my employees. She's not performing. She's really, combative. She's very confrontational. Nobody can talk to her. We're really struggling with her. And, she's been here for a long time, but we just can't have this behavior anymore. And we can't stand this. And so we're going to either have to, let her go or figure something out. So we need you to kind of work with her. And so we sat down and had the first kind of meeting between her manager, myself, and the employee that I would be coaching, and sort of set some goals and sort of said, what are the big things we need to see some progress on? And there was 2 things that came up, and, it was around sort of being able to have, manage the conflict and have conversations. Like I said, this is kind of one of the big points of pain that a lot of teams get in. And the other one was just around, her being able to then lead her team. She was not new to the production manager role, but it had been a couple of years and there had been some changes, and it was time for her to kind of step up in a bigger capacity to lead that team. And so we have just crossed the 1-year mark of working together, and it's been night and day. So some of the things that have changed, she has now doubled the size of her team. She is working less, more happy. She will now take on a conversation if she needs to, instead of bottling it up inside and letting it kind of explode, thinking that nobody is noticing that she's upset. Because none of us are as good as actors as we think we are, is the other thing that I've discovered. She's an integral part of the team. Not only did she completely turn around, she was actually on the cusp of quitting because she just didn't see a way through this. But loved the company, kind of loved the job and really wanted to figure out a way, but couldn't see it for herself. So in the year that we've been working together, she has even said, the last time we talked, I feel like I am a different person, and I know I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't started working with you. And it's those skills that we are not taught. And everybody calls them soft skills when it comes to leadership: listening, feedback, empathy, creativity, innovation, all of those things. They sound soft and anything but. I've started to refer to them as the power skills of leadership, because it's what makes a difference. And yeah, the last time I was there, we just did an in-person training session with the whole group at this manufacturing company, because now they've brought me in to work with the whole team. And it's, people are leaving our sessions and our time together just going like, we're different people than when we started this work together. And I think that's what it's about, right? It's seeing a
That's
different way.
amazing. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that. Like I said, I just wish you were around when I was going through all of that in the corporate world. And Holly is saying in the chat, she's saying, so good, Erin. Oh my gosh. Big exclamation points and hearts and tears. So this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Really, really loving having impact and being able to help people. It's such, you're giving a gift, but you're also getting the gift of being able to see that and be part of that change for companies.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. It's the thing that, so before I left my engineering career, I said, you know what, I'm going to run this last project that I was given, because I kind of was like, I've got these 1 foot out, like we talked earlier, 1 foot on one side of the divide, 1 foot on the other. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to run this last project so that I have the way that I really want to run this project. I'm going to let go of the way I think I should and the way everyone's told me I should. And, I'm going to have the conversations I want to have, and I'm going to talk to the people the way that I want to talk to them. And it was one of the most satisfying and fulfilling experiences of my life, because we just had the best time delivering this project. And it wasn't that everything went well. In fact, quite a lot went wrong. We had a lot of things that went wrong. But it was the way we came through it, and the conversations we were able to have, and the fact that everybody on that team wanted to work together again, which is rare in construction. People can't wait for the project to end so they can go get a new one and hopefully have a new and quote unquote better team. And that was not the case here. And I was like, there's something here. And this is the thing I want to bottle up and, give to the world.
that is beautiful. So beautiful. I know at the last place that I was at, I had people reporting to me. I had a team of 11 people. And when I left, because of how I was being managed and mismanaged, when I left, my employees were crying. Yeah. And they said, take us with you. Where are you going? And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. I can't be in corporate anymore. Yeah. I have to be on my own, because I cannot stomach this anymore. I have no tolerance left. After being burnt out so many times, I had no tolerance left. And it was wonderful and heartbreaking at the same time that they would feel so deeply about the changes that I made and the changes that I brought, because my culture was not part of that company's culture at all. And it just, our team was so caring for each other and looking after each other and making sure that everybody was good and everybody was supported. And I fostered that environment. And unfortunately, when I left, I'm told that it just went back to how it was. So I'm sorry about that, but I said to them, and that's, I can't save everybody. I can only save myself.
Absolutely. And, yes, it's a poster on the wall. It's the meme that goes around social media, but people don't work for companies. They work for leaders.
Yes. And that's for sure.
Go to work every day because of who is in charge of us at that company and who is leading us at that company. And that's why I think, specifically leadership coaching at all levels, I'm hugely passionate about all leaders having access to support and coaching, not just once you get to the C-suite, or not just once you have the title or the corner office or the certain paycheck. I think it's incredibly important for everyone to have access to it. And in fact, your frontline leaders, those people that are just newly promoted, have the biggest they carry the biggest load and they have the biggest impact on your bottom line results. Because they're managing all of those doers that are out there doing the work. And so I think it's just incredibly important that we continue to support and work with the people that put their hand up, that take this on, that are in charge of and responsible for other people at work. It's a big job. Managing the human side of work is so big.
Absolutely. And it's a big responsibility as well.
It's huge. And
It's not,
especially coming out of the last couple of years, like
Mhm.
the burden is heavy.
It absolutely is. And I would say I've heard, over my years, I've heard people saying about managing your boss or managing up, right?
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think this is where a lot of thoughts are coming in right now, so let me just gather them. So managing up, I think in order to do that effectively, and it's less probably about managing up as it is about knowing yourself. I think it really I became an effective manager of my next level leadership group, if that is like the ones that were sort of looking after me and my peers. Once I knew who I was, what I stood for, what was important to me, how I wanted to show up, it became much easier to influence and to maintain boundaries and to get into some of that. I don't want to say conflict, but just to get into some of those tougher conversations, right? And to really kind of see what was going on. When I realized that I could actually stand in my own space and in my leadership seat. And the interesting thing is once that happens, then you actually get recognized by the next level leadership groups as like, oh, here's somebody with a voice and a perspective and somebody we need to listen to. If I go back to the example that I shared earlier of my production manager who was not holding that space and was just getting quite angry with upper management every time they'd ask for something. She knew that she needed additional resources or a different approach or an operational change, but she wasn't talking about it. And she'd just get really frustrated and angry about these things that they were asking her to do. And so through our work together, she was able to tackle some of those conversations and she was able to give voice to some of her ideas and opinions. And they started to take her seriously and they were able to implement the changes because she was able to ask for what she needed. So she didn't have to get angry about it anymore. And so I think this whole notion of managing up is more about skill building within so that we can then go and have those conversations that need to be had with the upper levels.
Yes. So know yourself.
Always. It always starts
right?
on the inside, Christine. Always.
Yes. Know yourself and knowing your values, knowing what you stand for, and knowing what you won't stand for, or you can't stand for. I think I come from a supply chain background, so knowing the atrocities that happen in the supply chain, especially in different countries around the world, and knowing that they're the only game in town, they're the only place you can source that product from, but what that product is doing to people at the home country where it's being manufactured or put together, those people are suffering to put this together or dying even. To be able to say, this is not okay, and there's no part of it that I'm going to support in any which way or fashion. And that really makes a difference, and it made a difference to a lot of the people that I was working with, both as my vendors as well as my peers, and having those conversations. So that, I guess that's the other thing maybe for me, was because I wasn't getting supported in the workplace, exactly. I looked outside of my workplace to my professional organization and other going to message boards, going to those things to understand more about what it is you're frustrated about, why you're frustrated. Has anyone else had any success in doing something about it? And then talking to those people, and not being worried about reaching out. You're trying to make something better, so never feel worried about reaching out to someone who's trying to make the world a better place, and ask them, hey, how are you doing that? I want to know. I want to be able to start doing that. I need to do that where I am. And getting, listening and learning and asking more questions, and
Yeah.
being constantly curious, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in business, we all want to see the results, right? The bottom line, the revenue, the, widgets, the whatever it is that you do. And what I just every day am reminded of and believe in more is that this is about we are we are human, and this is a human business. And so if we take care of the people will take care of the results, right? And so you can do a whole lot of technical training. You can do a whole lot of, you can put people through kind of technical stuff, but if you don't teach them the skills necessary to have really positive and effective relationships, um, you're never going to get to where you want to get to.
Very good point. Very good point. So I'm going to switch up a little bit again here, and I'm going to say, you wrote a book. You published in 2017, Inside Out Empathy. And just curious, do you have another book inside you still to come?
Yeah, I actually have 3 on the go right now. But it's incredibly challenging to, this is my sort of next edge, if you will, is around balancing kind of the client facing work and the work that I do out in the world, and having time to write. I wrote that book while I was on that leave that I spoke about with my daughter. So I did not have a corporate career. I did not have a private career. I really was focused on my family, and she would go to tutoring for 4 hours a day, and I would sit in a coffee shop around the corner while she was doing that. And it was a really great space to be able to write that. And so always looking in different areas and ways to carve out time to write. So yes.
Aha. And how can we support you? How can we help you with that? What would be something that would be really helpful to get more of Erin out in the world and being able to help more people, rather than just in one person's 24-hour day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the easiest and most accessible place to start is to buy the book. It's available on Amazon, Chapters, Indigo, wherever books are sold, you can pick up a copy there. If you like it, leave a review. That always helps feed the algorithms and gets it in front of the people that it needs to be in front of. From there, I love working with teams. So if you have a leadership retreat, an offsite, a conference, a day, even a women's network, or a diversity and inclusion network that you want to have someone come in and speak at, please reach out. You can use the link at the top of the room there to connect with me. And we can go from there. This work that I do it's similar in a lot of companies, but it also needs to be slightly customized, if you will, depending on the company and what's going on. So those would be the places I would say to start.
All right. Thank you. I
Mhm.
guess it's like the examples that you gave too. One was a leadership team that was having a frustrating employee and not knowing how to deal with that person, and it turned out they're now an integral part of their management team and helping
Absolutely.
drive the business forward. So it can be, many people that need help, or it can be one person that needs help that makes the change for everyone.
Yeah.
And they always say that, that one bad apple analogy, can bring the whole place down. If you've got a toxic employee or you've got a toxic manager in place, that's what do you do? Do you throw, and then there's all these analogies are coming to mind, throwing the baby out with the bathwater and all that sort of thing, right? You've got a manager that's got all this deep rooted experience in the skill or the trade or the enterprise. And you don't want to lose that knowledge, but at the same time, that person's making everybody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. Try this first.
Well, that's just it. If both parties are willing to give it a shot, because it is work. I'm not a fairy godmother that can come in and wave a magic wand and fix it overnight. But if both people are willing to do the work, or a team is willing to do the work, or an individual is willing to try something new, it doesn't take very long before you can start to see small transformations, which then translate into big transformations. And especially when we're dealing with people, it's often the littlest, tiniest adjustments that allow people to see the shift and the opening, and it grows from there. So it's super powerful.
Like you said, moving that ship wasn't one big move. It was a whole bunch of small moves.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But it is possible. It is possible.
It is definitely possible.
Yes. So, any thoughts? We've got a few minutes left, Erin. I just want to make sure that you get to share as much as you can in this time.
Yeah, I think, I'll go back to if we do have a newer leader or somebody who has moved into a new leadership role, whether you're, regardless of age, we always have these new opportunities kind of being presented to us. So if your leadership role has changed in any way, or you're at a point of transition, I think it's the perfect time to seek out some additional support to help you navigate that transition in the best way possible. Transitions often give us opportunities to learn new skills, try new things on, and upgrade kind of our current approach. And so, if that's you, I would love to just connect and see if there was an opportunity for us to work together. I don't believe that leadership support is reserved for the executive teams.
For the C-suite.
And I know they aren't, right? And I know in my own career, that was the only people I ever saw getting coaching or having access to, training and mentoring and all of that. And I'm so fired up and passionate about bringing this down into the organizations. I want it to be accessible for everybody.
I absolutely agree. And if I could wave a magic wand, I would absolutely have, someone like yourself, now that we have Zoom and it doesn't have to be live in person.
Nope.
Yeah. Thanks, Holly, so much. You're giving great information and support in the chat. We so appreciate you. But now with Zoom and being completely, socially acceptable now to do things on Zoom, having you in all of the boardrooms of these major corporations at the same time, hearing the same information at the same time, and being able to disseminate that throughout the organization in a not second sorry about the dog, not secondhand or third hand way, but get the ball rolling, to get that speed built up and inertia built up so that it can keep growing and changing as it
Mm.
can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've been doing this work over Zoom, and we don't have to be in the same room, and we can have access to support. It reminds me of the oh, what was that game? Was it Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Like where you had the lifeline, like phone a friend.
Oh
It's
yeah, yeah.
it's like the leaders that I work with, that's who I am to them, right? And they'll call me and say, I've got this really difficult conversation, but I want to handle it in a really, in with integrity and with care and with love, because I really think that, there might be something else going on here. So I want to make sure we can have that dialogue, and we can spend 10 or 15 minutes on the phone, just making sure that we're in the right space, that we're going to approach it from the right angle to make that happen. And you know what? They have success, and they're able to retain their trained that, once you get somebody trained in your business, we all know how much those employees are worth to us. And so spending a little bit of time figuring out what else might be going on and how can we navigate this situation together is far, like, worth so much more than the price of the coach. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
it's just far outweighs when we can keep teams intact, when we can retain knowledge, when we can transfer knowledge, when we can, um, you know, break through some of those thresholds around productivity and efficiency. Far outweighs the benefit or the cost of hiring the coach.
You bet. And that's the other thing, hiring a coach is a one-to-many relationship. So no matter what the coach is charging, the value that they bring isn't just for one person. It's for everyone that person touches after they've had that interaction with the coach.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is lost on, calculating ROI on this and that and the other thing. Like you said, the biggest impact right now that we know, that is public knowledge, is it's hard to find employees.
Right.
And with the the development of companies like Glassdoor, that have this visibility into the dark side of companies, so that people can anonymously submit a review on actually being an employee at a company, and what it's really like inside there. They can make it look like whatever they want. They say, top company in the country, or top workplace in the country. And I've done those surveys when I've worked for companies, and those surveys are skewed.
Yeah.
The languaging and everything is all that trickery languaging that gets you to say, to say all the company's wonderful and everything, and this is rainbows and unicorns, and it's not.
Yeah.
And then if you don't do it right, you don't know who's looking at what you submitted, right? And it's the whole keep your head down mentality, keep your head down so you don't get it lopped off mentality, rather than being open and not being malicious or anything like that. I'm not advocating that at all, but to try and be part of the solution instead of just being an agitator and being, creating more of a problem, stirring the pot for the sake of stirring the pot. If you can come with integrity and honesty and be able to say to one of your leaders, or your direct boss, hey, I noticed that you're doing this, that this is happening, and it's really making people uncomfortable, or it's this or it's that. And to be able to use the right languaging, so it's not it's not taken as accusatory and the person gets defensive.
Yeah.
Right. That by itself, making it about the behavior and not the person, making it about the action and not the person, so that the person is taking it personally. But that people are going, oh, okay, I didn't know that when I was doing X where I thought I was being a nice person doing something for everyone. I was actually alienating a whole section, a whole grouping of our people. And people, I don't think people set out ever. This is the other thing. People don't set out to go to work to do a bad job. Ever.
I don't think so either. I agree. I completely agree with you.
You know, and people forget that, and they get their egos in the way and all of that. And if you realize that, you know, this person has been coming to work every day for the last 15 years and they've been doing a great job and everything, and now they're frustrated all the time and they're lashing out at people and things like that. And instead of going, well, you know, I'm going to give them their 3 warnings and then I'm going to fire them, it's like, okay, they've been great, so they are really a great person. Something has happened in this person's life, and work is not the only part of a person's life.
Absolutely. No,
So,
absolutely.
You know, let's be more supportive out there, people, and let's help
build our empathy muscles so we can support everyone.
Yes, absolutely. And make sure that, you know, when someone does lash out, don't lash back. Like have that automatic trigger mechanism. Have that on a delay button. You know?
Yep.
And which is really hard, because a lot of us have been in defense mode for so long. But, you know, I kind of take a step back for a second and say, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. Tell me more about that. And let the person say what they need to get out. And it probably has nothing to do with you.
It might not. That's right.
Sometimes it might, but that's not the majority of the time.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that somebody heard them, I think, when people
it's a big part of it.
Feel that they're heard, they appreciate that. And the other thing is keeping confidences. You know, if someone is telling you something in confidence, you know, a coworker is telling you something in confidence, absolutely keep that confidence. You know, unless there's a danger situation, that's a whole different thing. But don't break that confidence, and don't say, you know, don't go to, you know, the old days of the water cooler conversations and things like that. You know, don't be that. You know, have the integrity in yourself that you don't need to bring someone else down to make yourself feel better. So sorry.
And all of that is a practice. All of that is a practice. So that's and that's the work I do with leaders. So
so I'm definitely going to be picking up a copy of your book.
Thank you.
Inside Out Empathy. So Inside Out Empathy, author Erin Thorp, without an E at the end.
That's right.
And, you know, if you can't afford, if you're a new entrepreneur and you're just starting to build your team and you can't afford to hire somebody yet, get the book.
They get the book.
You can always afford to get a book. And get it on Audible or whatever you need to do so that it gets inside you.
Yes.
To get started. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait. And you don't have to pay a lot of money or anything to get started. So please, please, please don't struggle. Don't force yourself to stay in the struggle. And with that, Erin, I want to thank you so very much. I have really, really enjoyed our conversation, and our guests joining us in the room, and the guests to come that are going to be listening on the replay. So again, Inside Out Empathy, a book inspired by Erin's career and her journey as a mother, and it explores using the superpower of empathy to build effective teams. So thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all who joined us live, and thank you to those listening on the replay. Please do take Erin up on her offer to connect by clicking on the pinned link at the top of the screen, and click on her wonderful face to read her bio and follow her here in this app. And if you're enjoying the content, please go to the very top of the page and click on the little greenhouse to follow the club and get notified when new rooms get opened. Good night, good people, and talk with you again next week.
Thank you, Christine. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Erin.